So some of you might remember this. We're going to cut right there. I'm going to cut right there. Oh, it's taking me like 5,000 minutes to just cut the first one. Oh! Yes, about 3 months ago now, I did something completely stressful and nerve-wracking at the time, and I chopped up my beautiful MONSTERA elbow plant. It was just overgrowing in my IKEA cabinet and seriously it just needed to be rescued a little bit. So now today it's time to check in. Did the plant propagations all grow roots? Are they thriving? Are they surviving? Or did they perhaps not make it and turn a little bit brown and stale? I'll give you a clue. It's a little bit of everything. So if you're nervous about propagating a little bit or you just love variegated plants, trust me, you'll definitely want to see this. Not too tall. Okay, so here's the first cutting. We're starting outside. This is the cutting here. It's down next to a few other plants. It's in a shady spot. There's no direct sun hitting this girl, but it is very bright outside. This is the original leaf that I cut off. And this is the original root there. It's still when you press it really, really hard. And then 2 new leaves have come out. One quite recently, you can see. And the variegation is really lovely on that second leaf, but very small. And the roots are really healthy. Don't know if you can see those roots in there. See if we can pull it out actually. Whoop, hold on. I've literally got a bucket underneath to see if this works. So hard to see from the dirt, but beautiful chunky roots are coming up there. Do you know, can you see them? Right there at the back there, all the way through. And that aerial root has acted as a nice soil root now, and there's a beautiful, beautiful new aerial root coming out there. So now I'm just gonna have to put more soil back in because I've got rid of them all. But beautiful cutting number 1. And I forgot to mention, when we go through all the cuttings, I'll make sure I label them on the screen, and I need you at the end to tell me what to do with all these cuttings. Do I put them together in one big plant? Do I sell them? Do I put a couple together? So keep that in mind as we go around with the rest of the cuttings. So here is the next cutting we've got here. So this was the original one, which you can see a little bit of white has come off. Nice, beautiful, variegated stem. And this is the newest leaf that has come off. Almost a half moon, beautiful white, the white has stayed, and then just a new leaf which is popping out just recently. So the one outside was in just pure potting mix, as you probably saw with it all falling out. This one is obviously in sphagnum moss. Let's have a look at the roots. There's a big chunky root there. That's probably one of the old ones. Tiny little bit coming out there. That's so cute. He hasn't really done much. He's kind of just putting out some new leaves. There is some nice variegation coming out on the newest, but this is probably in the darkest spot in my house with the grow light there, of course, but there are no other windows. The windows are at least a meter away either side, and there's a wall right behind it. So the cutting isn't getting the most light. So it's doing okay. It's probably grown the least because it just hasn't had the perfect environment. It's been okay. It obviously hasn't got any brown tips or anything just yet, fingers crossed, but it is my slowest. So number 2 in sphagnum moss, just pure sphagnum moss. Let's keep going. Right, we're gonna come with me upstairs. Let's go upstairs. So you can kind of see a bed behind me because this is the bedroom, which is one of the brightest windows in the house. It's on the 2nd floor level, and it's got, as you can see behind me, it's got a lot of sun. So I do try and keep a lot of highly variegated or some of my favorite plants here. I'll set you up and see if we can get a easy spot to have a look at. Oh my God, it is so freaking hot. What is the temperature? It is 28 degrees Celsius. So what's that in Fahrenheit? Look. 83, it's 83, and it's not even the hottest. It's been a lot higher than that over the last few days. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating to buggery, so apologies if you see drips coming down. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Forget that, don't worry about it. So I have most of the plants, most of the elbow cuttings in this area, and the IKEA cabinet, which we'll finish on because that's where it all started really. So this is the one that we had in Fluval. It's actually, I quite like it. It's quite healthy. So that was the original 1 leaf that we have on there. Highly, highly variegated. So I needed to make sure that I put it into a lot of bright light or direct sun or something. And look, it's given me 3 beautiful new leaves, albeit that one does have a little bit of a mark, but the leaves are smaller. So even though it's decided to give me a couple of fenestrations, it's still not climbing. So I really do need to take it out of the jar and start potting it up onto a moss pole. But as I said right at the beginning, I want you to tell me what to do because this is where I get stuck. I've got some beautiful roots. Look at those roots. Can you see the jar is just an old jar, obviously, but I like to reuse, so you got to bear with me. Look at all those roots. But I want it to climb, obviously. So what do I put it on? Do I put it next to another 2, next to another 3? Do I keep it separate? Do I sell this one and keep the others? you got to tell me. I mean, I'm a little bit confused as to where to go. There's so many different options with 13 cuttings. It's crazy. So this one has been in a very bright light, either bright light coming from outside or directly under a grow light. It also sits right next to a humidifier, and that's why it's probably giving me more leaves. I do think that with Monstera Albo cuttings, you need to keep a nice, consistent, humid temperature above 60 to 70% humidity if you can. I don't have a greenhouse in my house. I don't have a grow tent yet. I'm just doing what I can in my house. So I've got humidifiers everywhere. So don't feel like you have to have a grow tent, and don't feel like you have to have a big greenhouse in the back. They're lovely to have, of course, but not everyone is that lucky to have it. So just try and do the best you can. Higher humidity, 60, 70% ideal. And yeah, Bob's your uncle. Is there another saying, Bob's your uncle? So that's the only one I had in Fluval, and it's doing pretty well actually. So another beautiful cutting. So that was the original. And it's given me 2 new leaves. So that was the first leaf that it gave me, and that's the second one. Same kind of variegation. You can see how variegated the original cutting was. And even actually the stalk and the stem that it's come from has beautiful variegation, but the leaves themselves doesn't have a lot. So you can't really tell how well it's going to do just by that little nub of a new growth point that you might see. It all depends on what's inside the stem and inside the cells and how big it grows. What I will say for this one though, been in the same area under the grow light, near the humidifier, mostly consistent, but it'll probably be a lot more stable because it's got a lot more green. So I need to, again, get this one on a moss pole, see how we go. There's also a beautiful root just there. And then the roots, there's a little bit of algae, so that's hard to see. So I will take this one out of the jar for you. But look, the aerial root, the original aerial root has gone all the way in, and it's starting to become a main root down the base. So that's pretty cool. It's just stabilizing itself and getting a good grounding before it goes into the moss pole that I'm going to give it sooner or later. So another beautiful cutting. The next one I'm going to show you is probably the favorite cutting I've had of all of them. And this is right next to a window, which is probably why it's doing so well. So that was the original cutting, surprisingly, almost gone. And then it gave me that tiny leaf, which I think I just broke off. Nope, I didn't. I heard a snap. And then it's given me 3 more beautiful new leaves. So that was the first one, which you kind of like, not sure about the variegation. And then the next 2, look, the next 2, already giving me lots of fenestrations. He's just the latest, he's still soft, he hasn't even come out of the shell yet properly. And then that one, of course, as well. That has a highly variegated leaf as well, just beautiful. And the roots, look at the roots, just stunning. I'm dropping dirt everywhere, not surprising. You can just see them, it's coming out the base already. And I had a good root system. So there's one that's just come out new there. There's a new one coming out just there. I've got a little pink tag here. This is the one I used sugar, like I put icing sugar, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit into the watering mix every now and again. More at the start. I haven't done it probably in the last month or so. How beautiful has that? I'm actually surprised that the one with the sugar has worked quite well, because it also was like the rest of this leaf, wherever it's disappeared, the rest of this leaf was white. So I knew it had high variegation, so I wanted to put it into a really bright spot, and it's just got a whole lot of beautiful, bright light, which is helping it immensely. Now, it has been very humid here. It's been raining a lot in spring, and even in the last couple of weeks when it's been summer here, it's just been nice and humid, like sweltering humid in that sense. So I guess that's a good thing. But to maintain the white on the leaves, I think it's very important that I try and keep it above a certain humidity. And that's the one thing I don't have, is a consistent room. I don't have a plant room. As I said, I don't have a grow tent or anything like that. So it is harder for me to maintain, but hey, I love a challenge. I'm going to take this plant away. This is the one you might have saw in the movie video I created last week. Go and have a look at it. I just reallocated my Jacqueline into pond, and I'm loving it. Looks beautiful. Still love it. And here we go. Look at the variegation on those 2 new leaves. So obviously that's the original one with a few brown tips and everything. And then beautiful, beautiful, beautiful new leaves. Variegation on that is just stunning. That's the first one that came out. So they're all doing pretty well, aren't they? I think they're all doing okay. Now, this one here, I have created my own little leca pot. It's in an orchid pot, which is why it's got so many holes, and it's why roots have grown out. But I've just literally found a net pot that fits into a base pot, a ceramic base pot, and I keep water filled up to about there, if I can, about there. Now, I've got 2 of the cuttings that didn't have any leaves, so I've got to get it out of the base. Okay, so first cutting without any leaves on it, and it took a while, and to be honest, it's still going. I actually wasn't sure if it would even exist, but look, it's just literally, see that leaf? That is the newest leaf that's coming out from my little cutting. I mean, how adorable. Seriously, how adorable is it? Let's have a look at the roots. This is the first time I've seen it. See, it's still got one aerial root. So it's still got the original aerial root that it came with. It's still hard, it's strong, it's not mushy or anything like that. Look how tiny that piece is. Tiny, tiny, tiny. I'm actually surprised it's giving me a new leaf because it hasn't really done anything with the roots. So the aerial root has now become a sphagnum moss root in a very high humidity prop box, and that's probably why it thinks it's got enough energy, but it's taken ages. Like, it's taken 3 months to get to that point, which isn't much. So yeah, I think my lesson there is cut them with a leaf, not without, on the node if you can help it. And then the second cutting with no leaf and an aerial root. There we go. So look, it's not dead. It's pretty much done nothing. Right, so it hasn't really gone anywhere, but it hasn't given up either. And it hasn't rotted. Just the long aerial roots have come off, so that's probably not the best, but I'm still going to give this a chance because sometimes cuttings just take months and months and months, and other times cuttings can come out like that. It may wither away and die in I don't know how long, but it hasn't given up, and there is the tiniest little nub on a new growth. You can see it just there, on a new growth point there. So that tiny nub is going to do something. The question is going to be, can it put out any other new roots? Look, it may not do anything, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. I always like to trial. Maybe I should put that under more light. Right, have I got any more here? No, 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 no. Final step. Final step is the IKEA cabinet, and let's go and figure out what happened in the IKEA cabinet. Okay, so this is where it all began, so it's good to finish where it all began. This is my IKEA cabinet, and there should be the rest of the cuttings here. I hope they've all survived, although I will show you the first one very, very quickly, because yeah, hold on. So yep, this one with the leaf didn't survive, wasn't happy, wasn't getting enough light probably at the time, especially through winter. It does have a little bit of a grow light above it, it just wasn't happy, and I think the medium had something to do with it as well. So yeah, one definitely did not survive, so I've definitely had a little bit of everything, haven't I, so far? Okay, let's get to the rest of the cabinet. Am I recording? Yes, I'm recording, that helps. So let's go back to basics. This is the base. So it doesn't look the best. Now, that is totally my fault. It's got a broken leaf, an absolutely broken leaf. It's totally my fault because I had this planty up here, which you can just see, this one, Anthurium vitirifolium. I had it on the roof, didn't have it stable enough, and it just fell onto this plant and broke the stem, which is a bit of a shame. But that was one of the original leaves. And then the other original leaf, there it is, just a bit hidden, is that one there, you can really see. So the newest leaves are this one. This one was next. Quite beautiful variegation. And then the final one is this one. A little bit less variegation, but it's not too bad. And you can just see a new growth point. Look at it, it's so cute. But it's been there for a while, actually, that little new growth point. It's adorable, it's so adorable. So it's still in the same moss pole it was originally. It just hasn't grown very much. The root's still very heavy. And again, the aerial roots I put back into the soil to give it, here it is, to give it more stabilization. It's at the bottom of the IKEA cabinet. It's competing against all of my other plants in this thing for light and for space up the top. And I do have a lot of beautiful, highly variegated or prized plants, which I want all of them to get light in some way, shape or form. So it definitely has competition, but there you go. That's the base. I'll keep him growing. See how we go. What number are we up to? 9, I think, 9 or 10. From the base to the top part. So the top of the cutting had the most leaves still available. So that was an old original one. And that was an old original one. And that was also an old original one. So it's only given me one new leaf. Highly, highly white. Just a little bit worrying. Still quite stable, but what you can't see properly is the roots, and the roots are amazing. Proper close up, they're coming out the base. Huge, huge amount of roots coming through. So even though it's not doing much at the top on the growth, on the leaf, it's definitely giving me a new base and it's giving itself a new structure, and it just needs a water, which I missed yesterday because I watered most of these yesterday. Next one is this one. This was leca and perlite. I mixed them together to try and make sure that the perlite got into the holes of the leca so it could hold the moisture a little bit more. That's the original leaf, as you can tell, because it's half damaged and cut off. And then it's given me 2 little baby ones. That one And then that one. And the roots just haven't done as much in this one. They've done a little bit. Can you see just the... But I must admit, I'm actually surprised this hasn't done more for me. It's been in a very nice environment. I've kept it fairly damp, but again, just takes time. And Monsteras across the board do really grow slower than most, especially the ones with the bigger leaves like the Monstera Green or the Thai Constellation, or in this case, the Albo. But this was my favorite leaf, which I mentioned a few times, a few people noticed in the very original Chop and Prop one, because that is the original gorgeous highly variegated leaf. My only issue is this has just started. Look at that, just a tiny bit of brown, which is not a good sign, which is a bit of a shame, but that's okay, that's okay. But look at that beautiful chunky aerial root coming out, and the roots, look at the roots. Look at it. All around. Heaps and heaps of roots. This guy's just doing amazingly well. It absolutely needs a moss pole so that can go on. And then the two new leaves. The first one was not so variegated, although I do like the real like slash of white coming at the bottom there. Slash of mint and slash of white. And then the newest is highly variegated. So this one's giving me a whole lot of different stuff. But this one's done very well. Giving me all the feels, this one. I absolutely love it. Just beautiful. And it seems the ones in the potting mix has probably done the best for me out of all of them, which is surprising in a way, I guess, because, you know, there's all this hype about all of these other potting mediums. But ultimately, there's a reason why plants grow in soil outside and potting mix outside, because it has a whole of the different nutrients. Okay, here they all are. Look at them. All 13 minus the one that hasn't worked, minus the 2 that are wet sticks. I've kept them in the little box. But I can't believe how many have survived and done quite well, actually. They're slow growers, but they're still done really well. If I was to do this again, there's probably a couple of things I would take with me. One is the aerial roots. If you've got good strong aerial roots, they're actually really great as soil roots, which kind of makes sense because they are used to oxygen and air anyway. The second one is environment really is key. I did notice when I used natural light, the cuttings grew a lot better. So the right environment, especially for cuttings when they're so small and gentle, is really key as well. So right humidity, high humidity if you can, really good lighting, natural lighting if you can, right soil, good nutrients, etc. Just keep it in a really lovely, fitting, high humidity environment and they will grow really well. And probably the third thing I'd take away is just do the propagation that feels right for you. If you have a propagation that works better for you than others, do that, go for it, because they've kind of all grown. I've used some in fluval, I've used some in soil, but they seem to have all done pretty well. As long as you've got a really good environment, like point number 2, I think your propagations will be successful. It does take a bit of trial and error. All plants are different, but technically just do what you feel comfortable with. So if sphagnum moss works better for you, do that. If fluval works better for you, do that. So here's my dilemma now. What am I going to do with all of these cuttings? If you're in my shoes, what would you do? Since you've watched this far and you've come to this far in the video, then I feel like you know my plants and you know what's going on. So I really just want your advice. Would you keep them all? Would you group some together? Would you give some away? I would just love to hear from you. Please let me know in the comments below. I might even add a poll to the YouTube community tab, so please do have a look there if there's a poll, but honestly, just let me know what you think. I've got a lot of cuttings and I need to make room in my house, so I need to do something with all of these amazing, beautiful Monstera Albo cuttings. So thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you haven't yet seen the video about me propagating from the beginning, please do watch this video next. Otherwise, have a great week full of lots of gorgeous variegated leaves, love, and a lot of laughter with your family and friends. And as always, I will see you in the next video. See ya, bye. Oh, lordy,